Everyone. Let me see if the recording has started. Okay, we have started the recording. Okay, whoever joined the session, thank you so much for making your time to attend this session. So today we are going to see about the drug pricing, and it's going to be an overview session. In US healthcare, as we all know, drug pricing is always a renowned topic, and the recent laws, recent changes now give power to the health and human services to directly negotiate with manufacturers, and it is going to bring a lot of changes. But let us take a step back and understand drug pricing key components. In that way, we can understand why the new act creating a lot of controversies. Okay, and in today's session, let's talk about the overview of drug pricing in US, drug pricing identifiers, plans and programs on drug pricing, and how drug pricing changed the NCPDP fields in drug pricing, complications in drug pricing, and also we'll talk about the acts and regulations for the drug pricing, the new law, which is the IRA, and finally, we'll talk about the drug pricing 2023 and its future. Okay. So this is a quick introduction about the topic. And now coming to the speakers, the two renowned speakers of our domain. The first speaker would be Malar Priya. She is a healthcare SME with 9 years of experience. She contributed as Techno-Functional Business Analyst, product owner, SME, tech lead, and developer predominantly in US healthcare, and has experience in other domains such as travel and hospitality, global trading, and legal as a technical BA, BSA, and PO. And also, she's well versed with SDLC approaches such as Agile and Waterfall. She's good at various technologies and tools, experienced in working with different software architectures as well, and modernization, and also the migrations of applications. Our second speaker, Sai Harshavardhan, he's a business analyst with 9 years of experience. He worked in various industries, but primarily into data, healthcare, and life sciences as business analyst, SME, data analyst, and data modeler. Okay, so this is a quick introduction about our topic and about our speakers. So without wasting much of our time, I'll take a pause here and give it to Malar.
Yeah,
Over to you,
thank you,
Malar.
Hannah. Thank you, Hannah, for your wonderful introduction and welcome everyone to the session. So, first, let us start with the drugs. Before that, it's just a general knowledge question, you know. So, which nation is in the top in terms of drug spending? Anyone? Any wild guesses? Which
United
nation?
States.
Yeah, of course. Yes, United States. United States is always at the top in terms of drug spending. Maybe they might be low or high in drug utilization, but then in terms of drug spending, they are the top one nation and for so many years. It's because more about the drugs, the prices of the drugs that the nation has. That is the main reason why we have this topic as well, right? US healthcare drug pricing overview. Why are we having this topic? It is for the same reason. Yeah. But before going into drug pricing, I wanted to give an introduction about how drugs are generated and why there is a drug pricing emphasization. Okay, so what will happen when there is a disease, when there is a new disease comes in the world? Okay, so there might be some biopharmaceutical company or anyone who will start just finding a solution or the medicine for the drug, right? So they will put their time, effort, and so many resources in innovating a drug for that disease. So after that, what will they do? They'll go for patent, right? So they will try to get patent for the drug, and that patent can be there for some years. Previously we used to have patent for 20 years too in US, but right now they just reduced to 5 years, I think. So what will happen if they have patent? Patent means exclusively only these people can generate the drug. Others are not allowed to generate the drug with the same formula, and generic drugs can't be prevalent in market as well during that patented period. Sometimes there will be, for certain diseases, there will be just only one exclusive provider who will have this patent, and they will be the only person in the market. So obviously drug price will be higher, and we call such drugs as single source drug. Single source drug, and the drug code will be N for the drugs. Technically we call those drugs as N drugs. Okay, so what if that particular company decided, okay, let me have the patent, but then I wanted to sell this formula to my sister companies, maybe to have co-licensing. Okay, so in that area, so those drugs will be called this M drugs technically. So that means, they may be considered as single source, but they are actually multi-source brands. Okay, so now what will happen if the patent goes off? Okay, now there is no patent. The patent is expired, maybe. Okay, so after expiration, definitely there will be so many companies, a normal company, non-innovative companies. So they will try to generate the same medicine using chemicals. Usually, branded drugs will be generated with a kind of a living organisms, right? But usually, if it is generic drug, that will be generated with by using chemicals, so that they can provide you the same drug in a cheaper price. But then when we talk about whether it is supposed to cure my disease or not, definitely it will cure, because it will also go through all kind of FDA regulations and all. So definitely it will cure. But then the thing is, it might not be on a very higher price like the branded drugs. So those drugs are called it as, technically we call that those drugs as Y drugs. Okay, so those are generic drugs. So generic drugs means it will be developed by multiple sources, but non-innovative multiple sources, and that is off patent. Okay, what will happen to the innovative company who originally developed this product? So if there is a generic drug available in market, definitely there will be a O drug. The O drug will be called as original products. They might be the one person who have innovated this drug, but then now they are off patent. So that means they will not go out of market. So even that drug will be present, and Y drugs will be present. Okay, so this is something that happens behind the drug. So that's how this pricing got varies, and why some drug price are too high. That might be due to the reason of their manufacturing reasons as well, right? Especially in US, they don't put a cap on manufacturers or this kind of biopharmaceutical company to say that you should not overprice the drug, or you should not set the drug prices more than this. They don't have any kind of restrictions, but they will do some kind of limitations when these drugs are included in the insurance. Okay, but then in general they won't put this kind of restrictions. If they do that, what will happen? That will hamper the innovation, right? So they won't usually do that. That is also one of the reason why drug prices are too high, I would say. And moving on to the generic differentiation, right? So between the generic drugs and branded drugs. So I say generic drugs are only if it is off patent, you can have generic drugs, and branded drugs are always a patented product. And it will be marketed under the generic name of the drug, and branded drugs will be marketed under the company who innovated this drug. Yeah. And this is manufactured by several pharmaceutical companies, and branded drugs are manufactured only by the innovator company or the co-licensed company. Okay. And the animal and clinical study, I would say it is not required. But then when you go through the FDA regulations of US, sometimes you have to do, if you are doing that, you can get approval very quickly. So it is not required, but then it is not that you don't need to do. Okay. But in terms of brand drugs, definitely they have to do. And there are so many stages available as well in clinical trials. You might have heard about this corona and how clinical trials are going on, right? So that is the same process for every brand drug. So they will go through multiple clinical trials before they come to market. Okay, and coming to price, of course, this is cheaper and this is costly. And appearance, appearance, there is a strict rule that generic drugs should not look in the same size, design, or color as branded drugs. Why? Because some people will think, okay, this is the brand drug, and they will think, okay, I'm buying brand drug, but it is not a branded drug, right? It is a generic drug. So there is a rule that it should not look like brand drug. It should look in a different way. And name variation, and mostly if it is a branded drug, most of the time it will be in the same name, but sometimes generic drugs will have different names based on different countries. But now, what is the new trend? I'm not saying new trend, it is a trend for the past 3 to 4 years. Now there is a big emphasis even from the government side, that is, including biosimilars into the insured insurance as well. Usually if you go to health insurance, if you try to cover drugs through your health insurance, only generic drugs and branded drugs will be covered. But recently, there is a good movement from government side as well to include biosimilars into the insurance. Biosimilars is not branded drugs, it is not generic drugs as well. Generally, it will be made from the living sources too, but at the same time, it will not it may not have all the active ingredients as branded drugs. It may have most of the active ingredients, but not exactly as same as branded drugs. That's why it is called as biosimilar. It is nearly identical to the original biologics. Original biologics is the branded drugs, so it is nearly identical, but it is not exactly same. So when we come to cost, right? So the cost is usually less expensive than the branded drugs, but at the same time, little costlier than the generic drugs. But why biosimilars are important now? When generic drugs are out of the when there was a situation, there was a particular disease where generic drugs were not available in the market, so everyone have to go for branded drug, and branded drugs are of course very costly. In that situation, if biosimilars are available, it is not that costly as branded drug, right? So we could have opted for biosimilars. That is one another reason, and it also had the faster development process. That is also one reason why now government and insurance are very much interested in biosimilars. Okay, so this is the quick background on the drugs. Now, let's move on to the drug pricing identifiers. In general, drug will move from manufacturer to the consumer, right? In between, there are so many players involved in it. So, manufacturer, wholesalers, pharmacies, and insurance companies, payers, government, federal government, state government, and in US healthcare, we have one more player, very important player, who is PBM, pharmacy benefit managers, who plays a very big role in drug pricing in terms of negotiating and setting a different pricing. Yeah, so they have a different play altogether. Yeah, we have seen that in our previous session on PBM, right? So now let us see some identifiers. This is just an introduction of these identifiers. In further slides, we will see the workflow. In the workflow, you can see this terminologies, how this terminologies is differing in terms of workflow as well. First, let us understand the terms. Okay, so there is a term called wholesale acquisition cost. Usually, when wholesalers buy drugs from manufacturer will say, okay, this is the WAC. Okay, so the WAC cost will be displayed to them, that don't have any discounts or negotiations, nothing will be there. It is a normal WAC, they will just show the WAC to them. But then after that, the wholesaler can again ask for some discounts and some kind of negotiations they can do, and they can buy the drug in a different price to average manufacturer price too. Okay, and there is another price called average sales price. So average sales price is a weighted average for the manufacturer's sales price for a drug for all purchases. And there is an another important terminology, which is average wholesale price. In general, if there is a average wholesaler price, so that is how pharmacy will buy drugs from manufacturers or wholesalers. They will say there will be some AWP, that is how they will pay, they will buy the drugs. And usually, this average wholesale price has some formula. So this formula will vary, but there is a database called Medispan database. So this Medispan or FTB, they will help the pharmacies and everyone in distributing the formula. Even if you just go and see the pharmacy systems or any payer systems or even PBM systems, you can see that they might be subscribed for this Medispan database or FDB database, and this Medispan FDB will give them the formula and the formula calculated AWP pricing, MAC pricing, everything will be done by them, because that involves a lot of calculation, So that's why these people are subscribing to this Midspan or FTB database to get the AWP price. Okay, now UNC, usual and customary price, it is a normal average cash price that is determined by pharmacy, because they have to include all this dispensing fee, maintenance cost, because some drugs needs a lot of maintenance, you can't just keep it in your stack and then sell it. You have to do so many things. It might be maintained in a particular temperature and a dry place, and so many things involved. So they might charge all of this, and then they will say this is the UNC price for this particular drug. If you are buying through cash instead of insurance, you have to buy it by UNC. So that's how they will say. But when insurance get involved, right? So they used to have certain things, which is one such terminology is FUL, federal upper limit. If you are selling a drug that is under the CMS, Medicare, or Medicare insurances, right? So you have to go through this FUL. After this FUL, you can't overprice it. So that is FUL. And MAC is the state level price ceiling. So usually in Medicaid plans, or even in a Medicare plans, if it is targeted for a particular state, you can see there will be MAC as well. In general, for generic drugs, there is no need for MAC, right? Because generic drugs itself a very low cost drug, so you don't need this maximum allowable cost caps or anything. But if it is a branded drug, then government will intervene there, and they can set MAC for certain drugs to be included in their insurance too. Okay, and then there is another terminology such as EAC, AAC, and those things are there. But then that is more relevant to pharmacy providers, and so many people. Okay, there are so many other pricing identifiers too, but then these are very important identifiers that we will see in our further slides. Okay, now let's see a workflow here. Okay, so first, manufacturer has some sticker price. We call that as a WAC. I'm from India. In India, we have MRP. So MRP means if you can if there is a MRP on any product, even on the drug, even on any product, if there is a MRP, you can't sell more than MRP. If you sell, then that's not correct. Okay, that's not legal. So that's why that's how India will cover it. But US don't have this kind of MRP setting, but at the time they do have lot of regulations, consumer acts, and so many things. I heard that Canada have this kind of MRP kind of settings, which is average market price, I think, and Australia has a recommended retail price, I think. So some nations have this kind of settings, and some nations don't have this kind of settings, but they do have some customer acts, consumer acts, and regulations to maintain it, right? So now moving back to here, the manufacturer has a sticker price. That sticker price is what we call WAC. So now wholesalers come to manufacturer, and they will do some kind of discounts, negotiations, and all these things. And after that, they will buy the drug at AMP, say for example, that is average manufacturer price. So after that, pharmacy will again have some negotiations, contracts, and so many things with wholesalers. And then they will use this Medispan calculated AWP as well. And then they will buy drugs with AWP pricing. Okay, so now what pharmacy will do? Pharmacy have three different pricing when they sell the drugs to patients. So those price are, one is usual and customary price, that is a cash price. If you are buying drugs without insurance, you have to pay that. And the second one is contracted rate. When this contracted rate will come into picture? This contracted rate will come into picture only if you go by insurance. If you take your insurance and go to your pharmacy, then you can see this contracted rate, MAC, AWP, and all these things. Okay, why? Because pharmacy and payer will make a contract between them. Okay, so based on that contract, they need to either usual formula is AWP minus 20% plus dispensing fee. It is not 20%. It will range from 15 to 20%, I would say. Average is 20%. That's what I have seen so far. So that is how the contracted rate will be determined for brands. Generics, once again, you don't need a contracted rate, right? So anyways, the price will be very low, so there is no problem. And for generics, we can see that Mac will be there, or you even use the AWP too, because generics don't involve much into this kind of things, right? So this is how pharmacy prices will vary if you go by insurance or if you go without insurance. Okay, so now this is just an high level overview of different drug pricing, drugs, and how this drug pricing formed and everything. But now let's move on to the next topic on plans and programs on drug pricing and how pricing changed. US had a very high drug pricing, and then only our US healthcare government and so many plans, programs, acts were introduced to change that. So we have our second speaker, Sai Hasha, who will take this. Over to you, Sai Hasha.
Yep, thanks, Malar. So we have seen the basic identifiers earlier and what exactly is drug pricing. So let's see how and when it all got started and why, one of our member have answered that why in US the drug pricing is more compared to others, right? So in it all started from 1980s, right? So basically the branded or the generic drugs, it used to get dispensed by the pharmacies, right? The prescription places where we usually get the products. But but the people started adopting to better drugs just because their way of living got improved, and because of that, the spend on the hospitalization or going to clinics, it got reduced. And as the people got better drugs, so they started spending more on the drugs, right? And which significantly cost reduction in the medical services, but the drug prices got increased. So back then in 1980s, right, we have seen that the per capita on drug pricing per year, it was less than $200, and it substantially increased because it gave a varied and good, there were good products bought by the companies in US. They have built some good products on to reduce cholesterol, high blood pressure, depression, and many things. So in 19 from 95s and 2000s, right, there were some drugs called as blockbuster drugs. So what were they? Basically, these are branded drugs which are, they say like $1 billion annual sales back in 1990s and in mid 2000s, so which gave a very good products. And because of that, people started spending more in 1950s, 1995s and 2000s. And then eventually, as we have seen, there will be a patent period for a branded drug, and which will eventually move to a generic. So from 2000 or in mid 2000s, the reduction of the drugs got, the drug price got changed. So, and that's where the US government came into picture, that we can have a better Medicare programs, right? There is a program which is called Medicare Part D. You guys might have heard many times, and it was introduced in 2006, which expanded both drug accessibility and also introduced a benefit structure for the enrollees to get the generic drugs for a better price, and the incentives were given. Now, in 2010s, right, in 2010 and late 2020, we have seen that the drug prices were mostly stable. And right now we see the per capita for an average in 22, we see nearly $1,500 per head is what they're spending. So if you see the overall spend, it just got multiple many a times, from $200 in 1980s to $1,500 uh, per year or per head in a year. So to control this overall drug pricing system, right? There were different measures taken by the US government, which is primarily what we see is 340B program. So this 340B program is primarily, it was developed by the US government to have these drugs not only, the people living in the urban areas, they can afford because they have employment or, or through better facilities there. But in the rural and in some of the very critical hospital cases, right, like cancer institutes or cancer hospitals, right, people were not able to actually afford the drug pricing drugs. So what US government have done, they have introduced this 340B program. It was late in 1990s, and so which is again, as I said, regulated by the government, so that it controlled the overall drug prices in the US. So that their primary objective is to give the drugs to poverty ridden, who cannot actually avail Medicare or Medicaid services. They can still opt for a better drugs by by this drug pricing being controlled by the agencies. But it actually didn't serve the purpose. The reason why the reason why there is no actual there is no much governance on this whole drug prices by the US government. Though there is a agency, the manufacturing companies, we can say there are many people which are involved. As you have seen in the identifiers, we have manufacturers, wholesaler, pharmacies, payers and PBM. So there are many partners and many workflows involved there. So that actually increased the cost of the drugs. So what Congress and the Biden administration have done in 2019 is they have bought a bill, right? And they have bought a bill which is, in our view, which is a significant one, which is yet to be passed by the Senate. It is a HR3, or Elijah E. Cummings Lower Drug Cost Now Act. So what it does is it will have an authority by the name of Secretary of Health and Human Services, which they actually set the drug prices for both government and the commercial payers through a combination of formulas. So and they negotiate these drug prices and impose prohibitive taxes and penalties on the manufacturers, so that they can accept the government prices. But it is yet to be passed by the Senate. The reason why it is still not passed, because there are some open questions, or there are some answers which the pharmaceutical companies need. Like, though there is a HHS, which is Human and Health Services Secretary being set up by, if they are going to set up, so what will be the price? How exactly they are going to determine the drug price? What are the is it only for some of the selected drugs, or is it for all the branded or generic drugs? And how would the government agency will assess and incorporate the values of drug, because there are very different stages, right? A drug, when it needs to be published or brought to the people outside, there are different stages it involves, like the clinical trials and all the reviews from the people and from the providers and the hospital. So how that cost, who's actually going to incur? So and all these will be taken care by this new act, which is yet to be passed by the Senate. So which we will further see in the next slide, like what would be the view in the by the government agencies. So now moving on to the next is drugs dispensing and price with insurance. So you have seen the workflow in the identifier, like how exactly, what are the different from manufacturers to patient, how it is passed. But uh, these drugs can be dispensed and this can be priced along with insurance and also through medical agencies. So there are some use cases which we are going to talk in detail, like how these drugs, the overall cost got differed. But let's look at this particular workflow here. The left, we see it as a commercial workflow, and the right, it is for the Medicaid or the government drugs dispensing programs. So in the left, we see the commercial insurance program drugs dispensing. So there are three lines here. You can see one in red, green and black. So the one in red, right, it is on how the negotiation between the manufacturers and the insurance takes place, and the green is the product, is the money flow, and the black is the product workflow. So let's look at the first, the contract negotiation, which is highlighted here in red. So a manufacturer negotiates with the PBMs. As Malar said earlier, that PBMs act as a mediator between the manufacturers or the and between the pharmacy. So they negotiate, PBMs negotiate a price or a rebate with the manufacturer, right? And the product will be for a particular product, and that will be sent to the retail pharmacy, and that will be given to the retail pharmacy. And these whole prices, the negotiation and the rebates, will be open to the insurers, that how much amount the PBM is going to change. Are they going to charge for any admin fees? What is the rebate percentage? This is a little transparent only to the insurer, but it is not very transparent to the government bodies or manufacturer or to the pharmacy. So PBMs negotiate with the manufacturer, with the pharmacy, and also with the insurer. And when a consumer, now if you see the consumer, right, they pay the premium and take this and they avail the service. So that's how the drugs, the drugs contracts and the negotiation will be done. Now when a when a consumer purchases a product, right, a retail pharmacy again will have again they will have a contract between the wholesaler. They negotiate and at a discount with the retail pharmacy, and the wholesaler again will have the buy the product from the manufacturers, which you have seen earlier in the overall workflow. So this is the process on the money workflow, or when a consumer takes a product. Now when a consumer buys a product, how the products are being sent from a manufacturer to wholesaler, wholesaler to retail pharmacy, and to consumer. So this is the overall workflow of a consumer or the commercial insurance process. And if you look at the right side, which is on the Medicaid agency workflow, so though the whole process remains same, right? The different identifiers, it is just that in the left we have an insurer or the third party or the employer insurance, and in the right it is the Medicaid agencies, which is controlled by the CMS. So here in the right, in the Medicaid or in the federal agency insurance, right, the overall workflow remains same, but it is only that we have few more rebates here, which is the statutory rebate and the supplementary rebate. So when a manufacturer negotiates with the Medicaid agency, right, so for every product, right, depending on the type of product, be it a generic or a branded product. So depending on the type of product, they will have a statutory or a supplemental statutory rebate. It is statutory is nothing but depending on the branded or generic, they will have a rebate. And supplemental rebate is overall for a particular Medicaid agency, they will have a supplemental products like, for example, paracetamol, which is very widely used, right? So for such supplemental products, they will have a fixed rebate. But for some of the other products which are not part of the supplemental products, they will that will have a statutory rebate. So these are the two types of rebates which manufacturer and the Medicaid agency will have. And from the Medicaid agency, again, Medicaid agency will pay to the pharmacy when a beneficiary takes a product. So even here, the whole the whole identifiers of what we have seen earlier, right? Wholesale acquisition cost and the average wholesale price, right? And the wholesaler acquisition, it will still remain the same even in this workflow. So that's about the drugs dispensing and how the price with insurance actually works. Right. Moving on, let's see some of the healthcare, some of the use cases, how overall in the US, right, how this drug prices got changed, right? So this first use case is related to the healthcare programs. So healthcare programs are, some of the these are, as we have seen previously, this could be the federal programs or the Medicaid or the third party or the commercial insurance. So manufacturers will have a contract with the federal agencies, and they sell the products at a much lower price than the average manufacturer price, right? And wholesalers will buy the products at average manufacturer's price, and pharmacy will buy a product at average wholesaler price, which will be then further sell to a patient. So here, the patient will get at a very cheaper, at a very less cost, because they have the patient has insurance from the medical, Medicaid, or it could be from the commercial insurance. So, as in the whole cycle, right, there are multiple partners involved, and as the medical agency is coming into the picture, they can have a negotiated price, so the manufacturers can give the products at a lesser price to the wholesaler. So this is one workflow or a use case for the healthcare programs. Next is based on the pharmacy type. So in the US, we see a retail chain of pharmacies like Walmart or Express Scripts and Cigna. So these some of the large pharmacies, right? They have retail chain of pharmacies. So whenever a patient, if they want to buy any product or from the pharmacy, right, they have to put much money. There are it which incurs money from their pocket. So to reduce their out of pocket costs, right? So uh, patients can, or the member can actually avail some of the benefits from these chain pharmacies like copay cards or trial offers or discounted cards, so that whenever they are availing products from these with these services, right, they can get products at a much cheaper price. And this will directly reduce the drug prices, because because the member is already having, they are paying separately for some of the products and taking some external external plans. But there is very less transparency here for the third part, for the government or also for the commercial insurance, because these rates or the benefits is directly given by the chain pharmacy, and they negotiate this and they get more benefits out of it. So, and this will also incur drug pricing reduction. And the last workflow is the use case 3, what we see here, a patient with insurance. So insurance can be availed from the Medicaid or the Medicare services, and it can also be taken directly from the from the payer or through PBM. So what is PBM? So, we have seen that, pharmacy benefit management organization, they become a central part in US drug pricing system, and they, on behalf of the patient's insurance company, right, they handle the pharmacy claims. And most of the time, when a pharmacy submits a claim to the payer, they are actually submitting it to a PBM, not directly to the insurance company. So other than paying cash or using insurance card, depending on the type drug or the pharmacy, patients have this option of using, again, the copay cards or the insurance one, so that they can, the rates vary considerably here, and they only need to pay the copay amount, but not the whole amount for the product. So just by taking insurance from the PBM or the payer, they can, the member can actually avail a product for a much cheaper price. So these are the three use cases what we have seen, and let's see some with an example which Malar will take it through.
Yeah.
Over to you,
Thank
Malar.
you, Harsha. Thank you, Harsha. Maybe let's take an example from a customer point of view. Okay. So, say for example, I'm a customer and I bought 5 drugs. Okay. And these are the drug names. And here is the quantity that I bought. And here is the unit cost. That is for each drug, what is the unit cost of one drug? Okay. So that is what being listed out here. So I just multiplied it, and here is the submitted ingredient cost. Okay. So now comes to the calculation that maybe an insurance does. Okay. So what an insurance does? So insurance will look if there is any MAC rate available for this any of this drug. But for this true drug, two drugs, nystatin and lidocaine. Say for example, we have two MAC rates, okay, and then for every drug there will be some AWP cost, right? So there is AWP cost as well. So we have found out for some drugs there are MAC cost, so we have listed out the MAC cost, and here is the submitted cost. I just copy pasted submitted cost here. So now, how final cost will be determined? So the insurance systems or even the pharmacy systems, they will compare and determine, take the lowest drug cost from here. So for example, if you compare this AWP cost and submitted cost, of course submitted cost is lower, so they will consider that as the final cost. But when you come to see this scenario, MAC AWP submitted cost, which is cheaper? MAC is cheaper, so they will take MAC as the final allowable rate. Okay, and similarly, they will calculate the allowable rate by comparing all these three type of cost, and they will take the cheaper or the lesser rate, least rate. Okay, so now if I calculate all of this, I got 64.08. So now, after 64.08, pharmacy will add a dispensing fee, because they are the one who is maintaining it, they are the one who is dispensing it. So they will add some amount of dispensing fee, say for example 1.50. So at total, I have 65.08. Now again, there will be a comparison between the final price. Okay, so what they submit to the insurance. Okay, so there may be UNC. Okay, UNC is the normal drug cash price. They might have said the normal drug cash price is $90. So if the patient buys the same set of drugs through their own money, right, so they have to pay $90. But based on this, if they have any insurance or anything, then the allowable ingredient cost is actually 65.08. See the difference, right? So now the 65.08 will be submitted to the insurance. So now insurance will again do their adjudication calculation, and they will send what amount that patient owes, and what amount insurance owes, and what amount manufacturer or government owes, right? So if it is a Medicare insurance, so then all this calculation will be sent back to pharmacy, and pharmacy, based on that calculation, they will charge some amount from patient, and they will charge some amount from payer. So this is how the final pricings and everything will work. Okay, moving on, so for whenever the pharmacy claims are submitted to payer or to PBM, because mostly it is PBM, right? So whenever you're submitting the claims, if it is a hospital claim, we are following certain interoperability standards, right? So we are following some EDI protocols for that. So similarly, whenever you are submitting pharmacy claim, we used to submit through NCPDP format. So this is the NCPDP format. I just took some fields that is relevant to the cost related fields. So you can see the similar fields. We were talking about all this usual customary charge, ingredient cost, and so many things, right? You can see all these fields in NCPDP format as well. Okay, moving on to the next topic: complications in drug pricing. So, what are the complications in drug pricing? It seems so easy, right? So many people are trying to reduce the drug price. Yeah. So that seems to be a very easy way that anyway drug pricing will be reduced, but it is not like that, right? So there are some certain complications. So what are those complications? Let us start from the PBM perspective, because in our previous session, PBM session, we were talking so much about PBM, but in that session we mentioned that PBM can do some illegal activities too. So that is what we are going to cover in this next session. So this is where we are covering that. Okay, so there is certain time period where PBM used to contract with pharmacy in a very hard rule, take it or leave it contract. And that it is not allowed for the pharmacy to tell the drug price to the customer. Consumer will never know what is the drug price, because PBM makes such contracts. Sometimes PBM pays very lesser amount to pharmacy than the pharmacy might have bought the drug for, say for example, $100. But if they dispense this $100 drugs to patients, they might be in a thought that, okay, I will get back my $100, but they will not get. They'll get very lesser amount from the PBM. That is how the contract was originally in the 2000 to 2010. Okay, And also PBMs did so many other things, such as, there are certain things. PBM usually make some negotiation with the manufacturer, and they will get the rebate by themselves, and after that they will distribute a portion of rebate to the insurer. But the thing is that some insurance will never know what is the original rebate that this manufacturer have paid to PBM. That is also a situation even that is existing even now for in certain PBMs, and also they will do kickback. They have done kickbacks as well, and there are two top PBMs. I don't want to call their names, but they were charged because of doing kickbacks. What is kickback? First of all, kickbacks are, uh, they will talk to manufacturer, and they will say that, I'm going to keep your drug in my formulary list. If I have to keep that, you have to pay certain amount, certain discount to me. Okay, so they will make those type of things. But there is a rule. There is the rule in Medicare, Medicaid, and so many health programs that if there are generic alternatives available in the market, much cheaper drugs available in the market, only those drugs should be covered, and then only brand drugs will be covered. But they made the rule little different, that every time, when the patient try to buy drugs, the brand drugs will be dispensed to them, even though there is a cheaper alternative available in the market. So that is what we called as kickbacks, and two PBMs have done, and that is even proved, and they were fined. And another thing is clawbacks. There is a very interesting scenario. For example, patient bought a drug, and the negotiated drug price for the drug is only $5. Okay, but due to this clawback rules, right? So PBM sent a copay as $20. Okay, so $20 means patient have to pay $20. So after this quarterly review or yearly review, PBM will say that, why did you charge patient with $20? Send back that $15 to me. So after that $15, PBM will keep that $15 with them. Okay, so who is benefiting here? PBMs are benefiting, but pharmacy is benefiting? No. Whether the patients are benefiting? No. So these are some things PBM have done, and so many other players have also done so many things. But that is why, you know we have so many acts and regulations that is being followed in this drug flow. Say for example, the drug is flowing from manufacturer to PBM. Okay, so while flowing, we have so many laws available, which is for even manufacturer, payer, PBM, what are the rules they have to follow. There are so many laws being made, and transparency law is a very key, and it is in the bill state. Sometimes not every PBM is following the transparent pricings, the transparent rebates. And similarly, when PBM is negotiating the payments with the pharmacy, once again they have to follow certain PBM regulations while they are doing this, because to not cheat pharmacies, I would say. Okay, and also so many other things, such as how the listing should be done, how the formulary listing should be done, and how the transparency being said. So for everything, there are so many acts and regulations were made because of all these backstories. And the recent act is Triple B Act, that is Build Back Better Act. This act is being taken seriously by Medicare, and it will be implemented in 2025. I have taken only few points from BBB Act, because BBB covers so many things. So I have taken only drug price related acts. So one is, now HHS will select the subset of Medicare Part B and Medicare Part D drugs, and they will start negotiation by themselves. Okay, they will not let PBM to do that. They will start the negotiation by themselves, and the whole Medicare Part D benefit will be redesigned, because previously we do have stages such as deductible, ICL, coverage gap, or troop, and then that we have catastrophic and all these things. So all this will be removed in 2025, and hereafter it will be deductible, MOOP or WHOOP, and then maximum MOOP limit. That's it. There is no ICL gap, deductible, catastrophic. Those type of things will not be included. And what is government's percentage, and what is insurance percentage, what is patient's percentage, what is manufacturer percentage, everything is varying. It will be varied in 2025. It has been taken, it will be implemented in all payer systems and everyone's systems, right? So they are waiting for the 2025 implementation. And other than that, point of sale rebates and no cost sharing for Part D vaccines. Part D vaccines will be given as $0 for patients. I mean, free for consumers. But when you look at the percentage variations, right? If insurance is taking care of 50% or 60%, then government have to take care of 50% and 60%, and that is eventually increasing the government's drug spending, right? So hereafter, I mean, after 2025, there will be no cost sharing in Part D vaccines. Insurance have to cover that. That is the rule that they have made in BBB. And also biosimilar reimbursement charges. As I said in the beginning, it was previously only generics and brands. That is, they were including the single source brand, multi source brand, original brand, and single source generic, multi source generics, and everything. But it is always generics and brands, right? But hereafter, biosimilars will be given an importance, and biosimilars will be included in the formulary. Biosimilars will be covered as well in the insurance. So that is one another change. Again, this will make our payer system, PBM systems, and pharmacy systems to do some changes, right? So now let's move on to the recent act. That is, it is been released in June 2023. This act was there for a long time, but it is been released as a bill recently in June 2023. So what is this act is saying? HHS already selected those 10 drugs, and they are going to do all sort of negotiations and reductions and all rebates by themselves. And why they selected those first 10 drugs is, all these 10 drugs are high cost drugs, and it is covering some specific specialty diseases. So that's why they have taken those 10 drugs, and they are going under this negotiation process. This negotiation process will work in a way, CMS will offer some kind of pricing to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer can either accept the negotiation and stay within the formulary, or if they want to work out, they can also do that. But finally, for this first 10 listing, you can just Google to CMS and say IRA first 10 drugs, you will get the first 10 drugs list. Okay. So for this first 10 drugs, they will follow this process, and then they will select the manufacturers who will be supporting the 10 drugs. Other manufacturers will not be covered in the Medicare insurance and Medicaid insurance, and this will be effective in 2026. They have started the negotiation process, but when is it going to be available for the consumers or end users or customers? It will be in 2026. But what is our future now, right? So one thing is that when I consider more on the PBM side, because they are the biggest players in drug pricing. So there will be a more regulatory focus on the PBMs. Okay. And PBMs have to provide their reporting. Even the reporting requirements are changing. NCPDP has the NCPDP PD reporting. Every time whenever a consumer buys some transaction is going on, payer or PBM have to send their report to CMS. That is a rule. But that reporting structure is also changing to include all these rebates and all these things into the reporting structure as well. So to just manage the PBM, whether they are doing it correctly or not, or even the payer as well. And there will be a ban on spread pricing. So there would be a ban on spread pricing, and they will focus on increasing the transparency. Okay. Because nowadays there is only very less transparency, so they will focus on increasing the transparency as well. And there is a act as well, Pharmacy Benefit Manager Reform Act, which is about to pass. So which will pass the rebates directly to health plans. So what will happen to PBM then? So HHS is taking care of negotiation. They will be doing their negotiation directly. Then what PBM does? PBM have to shift their focus into different services such as benefit implementation, benefit maintenance, and even their revenue stream also going to change, right? So their revenue stream will change in a way that when they have some contract with payer will pay them for their administrative fee, implementation fee, handling fee. So those kind of fees can be included, and they can get revenue from directly from payer instead of getting something from manufacturer, getting something from payer, right? So instead of all this, they can just work with payer and payer can pay them, and the rebates and everything will be directly sent to the payer. So that is one thing that we can foresee in our future after 2023. This will happen to PBM, right? And other things are, recent bills. There are 8 bills who just mainly targeted PBM to introduce some sort of reforms, and mainly they were focusing on increasing the transparency and addressing the reporting and pricing practices. But we here I just concentrated only on the PBM side, but there are so many other rules and regulations being introduced, which have some focus on the pharmacy side and wholesalers, and then this chain pharmacies, GPOs, and so many players. But we can foresee, I can strongly say, we can foresee some sort of shifting is going on in the overall systems. We can see this kind of shiftings will be gone for the pharmacy systems as well as PBM systems as well as payer systems and so many other systems as well. And from the consumer perspective, we can see there will be some sort of good reduction will be good reduction will be we can observe that in our drugs as well. Okay. And then we come to the end of the session. Thank you for joining the session. If you have any questions or comments, right, please do post in the chat, since we are at only we have 3 minutes. So please post in the chat and
Yeah.
we will try to answer.
Thank you, Malar and Sai Harsha, for this wonderful session. It's very informative and interesting. We just have 3 more minutes. Thank you, everyone, for joining.